Econophysics, Econosociety, Statistical Society. And it's a pleasure to have him here to present us a talk on Hagiotoponyms, which I don't know what it means. I hope you explain. I give the microphone to you, and please start.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is usual to thank the organizer for a meeting, for an invitation, and that's what I would like to do immediately, to thank Professor Jafari, with whom I've been working for about several years now, maybe 10 years. And there is nevertheless a big regret for me not to be physically with you somewhere in Iran. You are all nice people, intelligent, well educated. You have a so beautiful country, and you are so nice when welcoming people that I regret very much not to be with you and not to be physically interacting. And in fact, I regret very much that this is virtual, because usually I like to physically interact with the audience. And I think it's very difficult on this kind of system. But okay, I'll try to do something as interesting as possible. It's, however, very specific, very specific. As the chairman said, what is Hagiotoponym? And indeed, it's something very special for me. I'm not sure that you will appreciate the depth for me. I don't know if it is possible to extend my considerations to other cases than the ones I have considered. There are not too many papers on the subject, that according to my literature review. And I'm going to try to show you something that I was interested in, recently means 5 or 6 years ago, because I kept the data in some file and only recently decided to try to publish something on them. So I'll talk about something very special, as I said. It's something about very extreme events, very, very strange things. And in fact, Hagiotoponym for the beginning is something which has, let's say, two parts. Hagio means saint, and toponym is the name. So it is about the name of, and now I'd like to try to move on. No, let's try to move on, because I need to explain to you what's going on.
You will see some arrows.
Yeah, at the bottom. Okay, at the bottom there. Okay. So, sorry for the jump. I'll have some introduction. I'll tell you, as usual, what are research questions that I'd like to consider. The research questions are the usual one. What is it about? Who are we talking about? Where is this happening, and why is that happening? There will be some data analysis, and I will try to show you that simple data analysis has to be done with that kind of strange system. In fact, it is connected indeed to econophysics and to sociophysics. And when we talk about the name of saints pertaining to cities, okay, that's the point. The name of saints pertaining to cities. Then one has to discuss the number of cities, population density. And at the beginning, the idea was to discuss about the financial effect that maybe a saint name would have on the city. So completely at the end, I don't know if we will reach that point, because it's extremely personal, I would say. I will talk about it a bit, tax income. But what I want you to learn is maybe an approach on rank size law. It's extremely simple. But you have to realize first where I'm coming from. And if the arrow is working, of course, I'm a Belgian guy. I have been educated in a Catholic tradition, so very religious tradition. Yet I have been much traveling, and I have always been interested in history and geography. And from the statistical physics point of view, yes, I'm working a lot with numerics, econophysics, and sociophysics. And these days, and I'm sorry, I don't see you, so I don't know how you react. It's necessary sometimes to say that since I'm talking about some religious aspect, If anyone wants to leave the room, I would say, please do so. I don't want to shock people. Maybe I will look a little bit cynical indeed. I apologize if I shock people. Really, I apologize. So, Hagiotoponyms. It's certainly my previous set of systems because it had to appear successively. Hagiotoponyms, as I repeat, means names of saints given to cities all over the world. And if I was interacting with you, I would say, do you know a little bit the geography of France or the geography of Italy? And even more the geography of USA. And that's maybe more simple for you. Do you know a city in the States which has the name of a saint? And usually when I raise such a question, people can remember San Francisco. Okay, San Francisco is a Catholic saint, and the name was given to that settlement in California by some people who reached San Francisco. There are other nice places like that. You might know St. Louis, and there is an archway in St. Louis over the Missouri River. There is St. Paul in Minnesota, okay, where my daughter is. Fine. There is a very nice campus of the University of California in San Diego, and another one in Santa Barbara. And from the complexity point of view, there is a big center in USA, which is in Santa Fe. But in fact, Santa Fe is not the name of a saint. Fe in Spanish, in Latin, means faith. All right. So you see that there is already some problem that you cannot look at the dictionary or some map and say, oh, Santa, and I count Santa. No, I'm not going to count Santa Fe as the name of a saint. I cannot pray. In fact, in the Catholic tradition, you pray a saint that she is interacting with God and giving you something for you. It's one way to interact. Protestant didn't like that, and that was a big problem with the Protestant in the Middle Ages. They wanted to have a direct connection with God and not an indirect one like this. But I will talk about France and Italy a little bit later, but just to show you that it's specific to some part of the world what I'm interested in. And of course, I would like you to go on and see something different. Like in Belgium, you have other cities, St. Hubert, I don't know if you know those names. St. Andrew is a classical name that we can know. Helena, where Napoleon was sent when he was defeated by the British and the Germans and the Dutch in Waterloo. These are names of places. St. Pancras is not a city. If you have been to UK, London, and you take some Eurostar or something like that, you reach St. Pancras International Train Station. But it's not a city, it's a parish, it's a neighborhood. I'm not going to consider that also in the numbers I care about. So just for completeness, I show you that these are really Catholic-based countries. San Feliu in Spain, San Feliu, Santa Pedra. Santa Cruz is not the same. Cruz means cross. Yes, okay, in Catholic religion, in Christian religion, the Christ was killed, died on a cross. And people can pray for the cross. Why not? And they can give the name of a place to the cross, and that's called Santa Cruz in Tenerife. Okay, and you have other cases below with somewhat well-known, somewhat not so well-known name, Edwig, Santa Barbara, Kilian, Manchester. There are plenty of other places, and if you try to use your neurons in order to have some idea of what's going on elsewhere, you can think about places in Argentina, in Chile. In Brazil, there is a famous one. It is Sao Paulo, which is a famous city, which is the name of a saint. Okay. And sometimes some saints have given their names to countries even. San Tomé, San Kitts and Nevis. San Tomé is Thomas, it's not so bad. San Marino is Marino, Martin, or something, you know. Kitts and Nevis are extremely special countries. Names of saints, I would say. So you see, there are names of cities which have the name of a saying. One could ask the question why, but that's extremely complicated. What I have to do only at this time is to consider how many cities are in some country, discuss a little bit why, and I will tell you that I found something very recently. That's why I published one of my latest papers on the subject, and something extremely strange and spectacular, I would say. But how to discover the spectacular? It is through a very simple way. It is to the zip rank frequency plot. This is a very old example. H.G. Wells wrote a book, The War of the Worlds. And in the book, you can count how many times you have a certain word. The word the occurs extremely often in the book. And then you have plenty, to occurs so many times, and so on, with, about, so on. And you can rank the words according to the frequency. And you obviously, on a log-log, not obviously, okay, because we will see the difference, but you do a log-log plot and you find a straight line, and you might see here that it is close to -1. In fact, fine. And so you are happy as a statistical physicist because you have a power law, fine. As you surely know, not everything looks like a power law, and there are extensions of power laws like the Zip-Mandelbrot, because when the rank goes to 0, you have a divergence, but infinity doesn't exist, except in one particular case. But then, in order to have a finite value at small rank, when R goes to 0, one has a modification of the power law. It is a Zip-Mandelbrot law. Tsallis changed a little bit the power law, the Zip-Mandelbrot law. Okay, you have plenty of other cases, like the stretch exponential, and there is one that I love very much, is a function which is due to Mr. Lavalette, unpublished work, but people quote the paper. And this is the case, this function, I will use it again later. This is a function such that for the rank going to 0, if chi is positive, then you have a divergence, whoop, over there. I'll tell you what is the plot. But usually there is since this is decaying, the order, the rank is made according to a descending frequency. At the end, you must reach somewhat 0. It's therefore, since at the bottom of the denominator, you have a function with a -1. It's something which goes to 0 at the value of rank, which is equal to n+1. It's like another parameter which is decaying and increasing, and usually there's a differential. With a rank, you have nothing above the final rank. In fact, I told you that I would tell you what is this graph, and this graph is the number of cities in the different regions of Italy. There are 20 regions in Italy, and there are plenty of cities in Lombardia, not so many in Emilia-Romagna, in Marche, in Friuli-Giulia, and in Aoste. Okay, so this is a function which is nice in order to have a fit to something which is going large for some value of the x variable, which is the rank, and which is decaying at large value of the rank. And from this Lavalette function, you have two parameters, the exponent and the amplitude. But of course, you can go on and generalize that and have 3, 4, 5 parameters, because you can modify a little bit what's going on in the regimes at low rank, the regimes at high rank. You don't need to add +1 here, but you can decide that it's a nu. Over there, you can decide it's a mu. You can have different exposure up and down, and you therefore can generalize a little bit that Lavalette function. That doesn't mean, by the way, that you are going to be more precise in doing the fit, because if you increase the number of parameters, people say, oh, of course, with plenty of parameters, you can fit a function. That's not true, because you need to have good parameters to fit the function. If you have plenty of parameters in parameter space, you have plenty of minima, and you have to choose the right minima. And so that's not so immediate. Okay, so let's go to France. And interacting with you, each one of you should now raise the his or her hand and tell me what city in France they know with the name of a saint. I'll let you think a little bit. You just say saint, yeah, and you have the name. Well, you have a saint over there at the bottom, because I'm sure all of you would like to go to Saint-Tropez. Fine. I'm going to maybe shock people in Iran, but other people would say, oh, Saint-Emilion, wine. This is the place of wine. There is Saint-Estève next door. Saint-Tropez is for going to the beach, of course, and to go to the yacht with jet people. And I decided that I would show you another place, which is nice, at the opposite of Saint-Tropez, Saint-Malo, which is the place of pirates, a long time ago. Okay, so, and I decided you were going to do that with bicycle. And if you go on, there is one which is missing for some reason on the old slide here, which is Saint-Étienne. Saint-Stephen, Saint-Étienne. It's for those people who like football. Saint-Étienne is playing green and white, green shirt and white socks and white pants. So Saint-Étienne is quite famous place also. And we go down to Saint-Saturnin-les-Apes, where I have a little house in Provence. Fine. So you see, there are plenty of saints all over. Somewhat famous ones, Saint-Tropez, okay, Saint-Emilion, Saint-Malo. Next to Saint-Malo, there is the Mont Saint-Michel. You might have thought about Saint-Michel when I ask you to have some idea about the city. Okay, there are plenty of them. Fine. So let's go on and see what plenty of them is. And in fact, they are on the right-hand side of the screen. You have the names of saints, Martin, John, Peter, who are the most popular ones who have given their names to cities in France. So there are 222 cities in France which are called Saint Martin of something, Saint Martin of something, Saint John of something, Saint Peter. Fine, these are males. But you have also females who are saints. Mary, the mother of Jesus, for the Catholics and Christians. Fine. Interestingly, and surprisingly for me, the second most popular saint, female, even giving her name to a city in France, is Colomba. I could not have guessed that. So, okay. So then on the right-hand side, as I said, you have saints which are rather popular. Etienne, Saint-Lô, Saint-Malo, Saint-Claude, Saint-Quentin, Saint-Paul-de-Vence, Saint-Paul-de-Vence, okay, Saint-Raphael, not so bad on the Riviera in France. Another one which is not so common is Saint-Péret, but also there is some wine there, fine. Okay, I'm drinking wine, fine, sure. And Saint-Saturnin, and then at the bottom here, I put, if we can see that, I hope you can enlarge it, see here. You have Sainte-Marie de la Mer, where there is an S on Mary. Because at a certain time, the legend says that girls, Mary, Marie-Madeleine, who had some affair with Jesus, and other ladies came to France by boat, landed in some place in southern France, and that place is now Sainte-Marie-la-Mer. So now you have a plural there for the Mary. That's a good thing to be a question for me. How many Marys were there? Should I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Marys, or only one, or not? Okay, just for fun. The longest name of a city in France is this one: Saint-Rémy-en-Bouzemont, Saint-Genès-en-Isson. Let's say that one. It's in Department 51. That's not important, but there are plenty of slash there, and that's why it is so long. The next one, which is Saint-Germain over there, and blah 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 blah, is the second one. And then I gave you the 3 longest names of cities in France because they contain the name of a saint. Fine. But the point was that when I was traveling in France, one day I came across Saint Lyons. Oh, that was in Department 84, I think, in Vaucluse. I think it's a 8, or Alpes-Maritimes. Okay, it's in southern France, Saint-Léon. Okay, since I told you from the beginning that I was educated in a Catholic system, and I knew a little bit the saints who were supposedly interacting to God with me in order to get the answer to the exams. They never did that. But my mother said that I should pray for God and ask her to get the answers. Okay, no, it's a joke. But then I met St. Lyons. And I said, oh, I never heard of that guy. What did he do? Why was he so popular? Then, going on again, I realized that I was crossing other cities, Saint Chaffé, Saint Jeannot, and you read with me Saint Dalma, okay, Saint Zachary. Zachary is somebody appears on the Bible, so that it might be okay. Then next to my place, there is a place which is called Saint Christol. One didn't know that guy either. And then at the bottom, I put names that I never heard about. Jurson, Juge, Latte, Avit, Saint. And now I'm coming to point something to you. Why am I interested in those people? Because they appear extremely rarely. They appear once. And in literature, there is a word which is hapax, which is defining a word that you use only once. If you say it twice, it's not an hapax anymore. So these saints, by extension of the literature, let's say, of the definition of literature, I would say these are hapaxes. Nobody, they occur at some very specific place in France. I'm not going to start discussing with you why they appear and so on. I'll tell you a little bit, but on a general point of view. Of course, from my interest, then I looked, who is Saint-Urson, who is Saint-Lucius, what did they do? What? And it was, of course, interesting for me, not necessarily, but there are a few studies on that. Fine. Okay, since we are doing statistical physics, I have names of saints, as I showed that there are 36,000 cities in France. 36,000. They're changing every year because they merge, they split, and but that's okay. And from the Hagiotoponyms point of view, there are about 4,000 cities in France with the name of a saint, which is pretty large. 10% of the cities bear the name of a saint. Okay. So, but doing some statistical physics, we have to connect those names to other things. For example, the size of the city. And when we mean size, then we have to decide what is the size. And for example, it is the surface of a saint, of an Hagiotoponym. Okay. And we see that they are sometimes pretty large. The largest city in France, in square kilometers, in Arles, in southern France. Then Sainte-Marie-de-la-Mer is closer. And then we see, I put a 2 to 5, 6, 8, and so on. Plenty of cities here, which shows you that there are those Hagiotoponyms in France are not small places. Now, another question will be the number of inhabitants and whether or not they are rich, because that was the beginning of the question I had. Are these rich cities? Okay. On the right-hand side, you have a list of cities, but Saint-Élie, Saint-Laurent, and so on, which were in department France 973. These are places which are not in the metropole area. They are dom-tom in the outside the sea. Okay, so these are not. I'm not going to look at them because they have been just like San Francisco, just like St. Louis in the States. They have been invented more recently. The cities got their names in France in the Middle Ages, when there was some settlement and when some people were starting to live and decided that they would put the name of the settlement according to the parish, to the church, to somebody who was there. Now, okay, in order to find out the names of the cities, one would say, okay, we take the data bank, It can be the Michelin guide. Why not? It is very useful for knowing how to travel in France. Or it can be the site of the Statistical Institute in France, and that's the one I took. There are plenty of other websites with names of cities, but I try to look at the most coherent one. And then when I have that list of 4,000 cities with the word saint, I realized that I should define male and female saint. Why not? If I introduce saint into an algorithm, I'm going to miss the males. But also, I'm going to miss other saints, which are in cities where the dialect was relatively important. Santo and Santa, because there is some places where those things exist. Santo and Santa, but also San, if the name of the saint starts with a vowel. And San, yes, San Francisco would be there. So these are words that one has to introduce into some algorithm for getting the name of the saint. And then when you get the name of the saints, one city which is well known in France is Saint. Saint, you say, oh, these are the plural of saint. But it's not the truth. In fact, Saint is a city which is the capital of some region where there was a tribe 2,000, 3,000 years ago, which existed, the Sintonge. And so Saint here is not a city which has to be considered. The same thing for Saint-Denis de Saintonge. You would say, oh, there is one guy who is Saint-Genis, and then there's another one who is Saintonge. Not true. Saintonge is an area. Saint-Genis is the name of a guy. Fine. Then you will see in a few minutes a picture where I distinguish saint. You have also to involve the cases in which the saint is not the first name of the city. Again, for people who drink wine, there is in Burgundy a place which is called Nuit Saint-Georges. Saint-Georges is secondary to the name Nuit. In southern France, there is next to a canyon, Moustier Sainte-Marie, where they do make porcelain, and this is a nice place also. But you see, Sainte-Marie comes after Moustier. So one has to be able to write an algorithm taking care of that. Other places which are disregarded are Chapelle-aux-Saints, because I have no idea at all who are the saints there, or Mas-Saint-Puel, because we have no idea at all who are those girls. Well, we know a little bit, but why they were important, because they help to recover the body of Saint Saturnin. Saint-Géomes, it's a very strange name, but it's a plural because this means twins. In fact, they were 3 brothers, but okay. So one learns many things. And you have also to consider the fact that there are saints which, according to the region, change their name. For example, in Toulouse, you have the cathedral, which is Saint-Cernin. But Saint-Cernin is in fact Saint-Saturnin. And if you go to France, in Provence, there are all places which are not called Saturnin, but Savonnin. But this is the same guy. All right? And then you have, and they occur pretty often, about 20 times. So one has to add all those names together in order to have some idea on the power of the saint from a city point of view. And then there are other names which are extremely rare, and even historians, linguists, geographers don't know if these are the same people or not. Okay, so one has to assume that they are different or not, and this is my own will. The same thing, there are sometimes saints with the same name, Andre and Andrew, Eloi and Eloy, who might be the same people, who are maybe not. Okay, fine. And this is to show you roughly a map of France with the distribution of hagiotoponyms to the city. Okay. They are located in areas, Normandy here, and then Provence here, and southwestern. And you see that there are regions which are more dense in terms of the number of hagiotoponyms. And one, I will not go into detail, but it is extremely interesting for me because these are places where there was religious problems during the Middle Ages, when there was heresy from the Christian point of view. The heresy has forced the cities into somewhat being more popular, more existent. That's a detail. Okay, I show you Corsica, which didn't appear on the previous map, and you see the heterogeneity which exists even in a small island, Corsica. There are 5 saints in the Ajaccio, the southern part of Corsica, and there are 21 of them in the northern part, in near Bastia, in the Haute-Corse. So these are very interesting also because you also, from this point of view, see that there are names, female names, male, and then I had show you that one has to be careful with the algorithm, taking into account San or Santo or Saint, because there is Saint, even though in Corsica they speak a certain dialect, some of them kept the name, the French name. Okay, so you see some difficulty. That's what I want to stress concerning the saints. And now let's go into the details and observe my finding, let's say. And one has to plot the name of the saints according to their frequency. I told you the Saint Martin 202 times is the most popular one. And when we do log-log plot, when you do log-log plot, you certainly have done plenty of log-log plots. In sociology, and econophysics as well, one can see that the most important point, the low rank point, rank number 1, in a paper by Sornet, it's called king, because he was studying France, and Paris was extremely different from the rest. And he decided that the king was in Paris, and Paris was the king city of France. Fine. But if you look a little bit more into the log-log plot, beside the very large first point on the top of the frequency, there are other ones. And in this particular case we are going to follow, the second and third, St. John and St. Peter, are extreme events as well. In order to fit the data, if you take them too well into account, you miss a little bit of the data. Okay, and I put the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8 most important cities. I'll show you why within a few minutes. The same thing for females. St. Mary is certainly an extremist city. And the next one, as I told you, is Viceroy St. Columb. So I distinguish between male and female. And here at the bottom, you see a puzzle that I had a certain time. Because we have said previously that one of the important cities that you might know in France is Saint-Michel, Mont Saint-Michel, in a very nice place. But Michel is not a saint per se. Michel is an angel, an archangel even. But there are plenty of Saint-Michel in cities. But this was very embarrassing for me because, as you probably know, angels and archangels have no sex. So I decided arbitrarily, I apologize for ladies, but I decided that angels and archangels would be male. Okay. Now we put them on a plot. We distinguish female from male. There is approximately a -1, no, this one is a straight -1 plot. And you see that the females are not so bad fitting the hagiotoponyms with female names. I mean, short N, are fitting here with a plot and a straight line, which is not -1. Okay. The blue one here are the male saints. And over there on the top, you have St. Martin. And you see that it's not really a straight line, it's curving. We'll see a little bit more detail later. But it has to be better fitted with the Zip-Mandelbrot plot, with an exponent slightly different from one, with taking into account u. Okay, two parameters, it's plus the amplitude, gives a better fit. And at the bottom here, I like it. I said this is why I started to look at those strange Hagiotoponyms. These are the apaxes, the names of cities which occur only once, but which contain a female saint or a male saint. Okay. And now we look only at the male saints, and there are three regimes. There is a blue regime here at high rank. There is a red regime here, and then there is, let's say, the black regime here. And the black regime, there are the 8 special cities with the names that I given you before. At large rank, you have a nice fit, nice power law plot with an exponent close to 1. There are 904 points here. Then there is the red regime, and that occurs very often, that kind of intermediary transitory regime between the low ranks and the high ranks, or even in other data in physics. And then there is let's say the number of inhabitant rank size, but seeing the time going, and it's extremely long to explain it, I'm going to pass to the next one, which is the spectacular slide that I want to show you and discuss a little bit. And if I stop here, I can stop not to go even to Italy, but I'll show you a bit. You see, this is the plot of the number of cities which has a saint name, but the city starts with the saint name. For example, Nuit Saint-Georges is not in this plot. But all the Saint-Michel is not in the plot because it's Mont Saint-Michel. But all others which have a saint name are starting fall here on really 2 different regimes. You see the log-log plot and the fit is amazing. So that's what I wanted to show really. The red line here is a slope 2/3, and the blue one 0.40. And around here you have, under level 1, you have about 700 apaxes. And something now interesting is this crossing, of course, which is, let me say, critical rank 16. So when I came to this picture, which is, let's say, the fits are pretty good. Don't worry, you can fit some line on 16 points. It's some variation a little bit, but the R square is over 0.99. So this is very interesting to me, and it is spectacular, and it was, I would say, I was wondering why. And I was wondering why, and then I thought, what's going on? And that's what I call a Erding phase transition. Remember that in order to be a saint, officially, in the Christian Catholic tradition, you need to have relics. You need to have bones of the saints in order to have a real saint. For example, for the specialist, the Virgin Mary, Mother of Christ, is not really an official Catholic saint because her body was raised to heaven, and of course we have no relics of Saint Mary. But nevertheless, she's very popular. I agree with that. Again, so by extension, nevertheless, she's a saint. Okay, the same thing for Saint Michael, Saint Gabriel, and all those nice archangels. They are not saints, but they should be. Okay, okay, by extension. And now, let's think about the behavior of people. Why the name of those cities became the name was derived from the name of a saint. In fact, one can consider that the population has 2 different points of view. Some citizens, the political, the religious leaders in the Middle Ages, had a parish, had a church with some relics of the saint. And that Saint Martin, had a good reputation for whatever something. Saint Rocco had a good reputation to heal people from leper. Okay, so these saints had a good reputation. They were fair intercessors to God. And so they were popular, and therefore there are plenty of places where there are those names of Hagiotoponyms. However, other people prefer to have a more personal attitude. In their village, in their parish, in their settlement, there was a sort of local hermit or a healer or a benefactor or something. And the name become important because of that guy. Saint-Tropez, Saint-Emilion. These are very rare names of saints in France. And they are more spectacular. I don't discuss if Saint-Emilion is doing good wine or not. That's not the point. But there is a difference between the two types of citizen. They have a different behavior. At low rank, there is the typical herding behavior. We love Saint Martin, Saint Paul, Saint Peter. And at high rank, there are all those strange names that I have shown you before: Saint Lions, Saint Ursus, Saint Urs. Recently, I was aware that Saint Urs existed, but it's not a bear, of course. And so I started to imagine a model, but it's extremely complicated. But nevertheless, the model is based, and you can read my paper on that. The paper is about opinion formation, and it's exactly no, it's not exactly. It is the same as in financial markets or in politics, in elections. You are like following the others, you're a follower, or you are an independent person, and so there is that kind of opinion formation, and the fact that those laws, the Lavalette function, for example, is used, is based on the beta function in probability, and is based on the Polya-urn model. The Polya-urn model means that you have a certain set of urns, with in the urns some black and white balls, if you wish, first. Then you take them and you put more balls in the urn, you add a urn, and so on. And that's the way the civilization, the cities have been growing and have been distinguishing themselves, because after a ball white and a ball black, you can put a ball red or yellow and so on, and you can move on, and you have a generalized Polya-urn model, which reaches a function like the Lavalette function that we have seen above. And that's one way to explain what is happening for those curves. And you can fit the curve according to the exponent. Now, why it is like that, it's extremely complicated. One has to go into history, and there are not much in the literature of historians. I have a very good friend who is an historian, but he specialized in Cistercian abbey, so close to what we are talking about, but there is not big literature. Now, I could jump on Italy, but I see the time is passing. I will quickly go to Italy because it's in the title, but not going very deeply into it. My point was that there was a possibility to look for Hagiotoponyms in France, and you have the column here of summarizing the data. And in Italy, one can do the same, count the number of cities in Italy, count the number of times there is a city which has the name of a saint, distinguish between male and females. Of course, since there are cities, you can distinguish the different saints and the different males and female saints. In Italy, you have only 31 female saints of interest, quotation mark, while we have 112 in France. You have plenty of males. It's a little bit strange when you look at that, because you realize that in France, who is officially a country less Christian, less Catholic than Italy, you have more cases than in Italy. You have 10% of cities here which have a in France, which have an Hagiotoponyms name, and only 7% in Italy. Never mind. But then you can go on and look at the same thing as I showed you before concerning Hagiotoponyms in Italy. Different regions have more saints than others, have more Hagiotoponyms than others. Excuse me. And But these are absolute numbers, and after that, of course, you can decide that you should not look at absolute numbers, but you should look at frequencies. And this is the distribution that I show you. There are 8,000 cities in Italy, 638 cities bear the name of a saint. In fact, 640 saints, because there are cities with the name of two saints, Cosmo and Damiano, okay, for example. And so Cosmo and Damiano, the medical doctors. There are also in Italy some exclusion to be made from saying when you have an algorithm going on, some exclusion, you have to have strange cases and try to find out if those names exist really, if it's Sant'Orso is the name of some saint or not. Yes, it is Orso, it is a name. San Remo is somebody that you might know if you know cyclism. There is a famous race, cyclism in Italy, San Remo. I'll show you Agatha here, who is contrary to the lady in France, the second most popular saint girl. I'm going to show it to you. Then you have to take into account linguistics, of course, the names in different places. I spend my time translating them, and here it's very difficult maybe for you to look at more, because on my screen I have three different slides. But see, Maria is very famous for the girl, and the second girl, second lady, excuse me, who is a saint, who is popular, is Agatha. I didn't know that. I didn't know Colombia. I thought Lucia or Cecilia was important, but in fact, one has to distinguish between names of cities, Hagiotoponyms, and the parishes and the local churches. It's different. But Agatha is an interesting lady that you can meet. Okay, you can look at Hagiotoponyms, make a data, fit the data in Italy through the Lavalette function, as I showed you before. This is the same thing as I explained to you. There is the female names and the male names, and they are fitting more or less over a power law or a zip Mandelbrot function. This is the cumulative dispersion function. It's not the name, the frequency of the names, but you see, the same thing can happen, but one does not find that's the most important point that I want to say before concluding. The most important point is that one doesn't see a break. One see an inflection point, yes, in the fit of the Lavalette function, but one doesn't see a true power law at low rank and at high rank. Yes, there is something around 12, 16, some difference, but it's not the same. So the thing that I was discussing with you previously concerning the herding behavior is not immediate for me. I should look at should go back to the data and see if one can do a little bit better. Just for concluding, because it was the reason for which I started this, besides geography and history, was to look at the finance of the cities. And I looked at the average income tax of Hagiotoponyms cities in Italy. How much the cities is paying to the government in terms of GDP, to connect with the previous speaker. And what are the cities, in fact, excuse me, since it is an average, I put all the Santo Lorenzo all together. And the Santo Lorenzo are the cities, Hagiotoponyms, which are paying the most, contributing the most to the GDP of Italy. And then all the cities with Santa Polo, San Nicola, and so on. Well, I think it's a little bit funny, but you can compare with respect to the number of people, made plots again. So you have a nice rank size low for the relationship between the frequency and the ranks. And let me go on quickly till the end, because we have, see, this is a very showing a graph that you have different regimes at low ranks with the king and the viceroys, which are curbing the curve, or sometimes in a number of inhabitants like Paris and Rome, who are moving up the curves. Okay, you see plenty of nice fits, and the correlations between the income tax and the number of inhabitants in cities, which you have seen. It's a very You can look at those data, but who cares about the parameters at this level? I wanted to convince you that there was a possibility to do something. And in order to look for correlations, I love to look at the rank correlation coefficient, the Kendall row correlation, to tell if whether or not the ranking of the city is according to the number of inhabitants, or according to the income tax, or according to the power of the saint, if that ranking makes sense and if it is large or small. And for general information, the Kendall row correlation coefficient is about the same, whatever the type of correlation you want to look at. Okay, fine. And let's conclude. What did we learn? Did we learn something? I don't know, but I enjoy myself looking at those data and finding a very strange, spectacular curve in France concerning the herding phase transition between people who follow the leader and people who don't follow the leader, but very independent. So one can see there is a complexity of results. I insisted on the fact that I love rare cases, that not everything has to be hidden in the most important places, but little guys, little girls, little countries, little scientists have also something to say. Little saints, let's say, who maybe don't have immediate access to God, but are nevertheless popular and have to be prayed for something. Yeah, they exist. And extremely difficult. I insist on that, and I have not shown the test that I made, but one can do the Benford law, to see whether or not the system is reliable. So basically, there are 3 papers of interest for them. And I thank you very much for your attention. And I regret very much not to have been able to interact with you all so nice people in Iran. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for a very interesting talk, Professor Ausloos. If there are 1 or 2 questions, are you willing to answer?
And I assure you that this is so special, in my opinion, that if there is no question, I will not be upset. And I think that you might go for lunch if you want to go for lunch.
No, it's actually, yes, lunchtime, but I have a question. So let me first see if there are other questions. But I don't want to jump the queue. I see there is a question.
Okay.
Dr. Montakhab, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much for a nice talk, very interesting talk. I just want to ask a general question, which is related to your discussion. Is there, I didn't understand whether there was a correlation between, let's say, financial wealth of the city and the rank of it.
Okay.
Because we can kind of imagine how, having a religious city, having like religious monuments and things like that would bring in tourism and things like that, and would contribute to the wealth of the individuals living in the city. I would appreciate it if you can comment on that.
Yes, it is. It's a very good question, and I had myself also at the beginning the same kind of wondering, puzzling, because if you know a little bit France, Paris is the most important city contributing to the GDP of France. The second city is Lourdes, Lourdes. It's in southern France, it's in the Pyrenees, and it is where the Virgin Mary appeared to a little girl named Bernadette. And that city is attracting plenty of pilgrims. But it's not in the data that I show you. Lourdes is the name of the place over there because it's the name of a river, and it doesn't appear. So indeed, I totally agree with you that at the beginning I was wondering whether or not there would be an effect due to the name of the saint. And to answer you, the answer is no. There is no strong effect. Another point, but that's making my life a little bit complicated, and maybe I'll be able to do it or not, is that the name of the city is not necessarily the place where the pilgrimage will take place. Let's take the city of Toulouse in France, where they make airplanes. The name of the cathedral is there, devoted to the Saint-Saturnin, Saint-Cernin, as I mentioned. And there is much pilgrimage in Toulouse to pray Saint-Saturnin. And there is certainly some money coming from pilgrimage, from pilgrims. But it's not appearing here. So in fact, that's true, that those names are not really bringing a lot of money. Those cities are not very, very, very rich. I forgot how many San Lorenzo there is in Italy. But if you divide the average by the total number of San Lorenzo places, finally it's very small. So if I answer your question somewhat completely, there is no effect. Those cities, unfortunately, I would say for them, God is not giving them much money because of the name of the city.
Okay. I have a question. In the data you presented, there was a big difference in the number of French and Italian cities. So 36,000 something French, 8,000 something Italian cities.
Yes.
But the economy is not that different. So why is that? Is that cities are very difficult? Is it very difficult to achieve the status of a city in Italy?
No. I have Roy Cerquetti, my colleague, and you see he's contributing with me to the first two papers that I mentioned on the side. We have, due to Roy, and please understand what I'm going to say, a very direct and private connection to the statistical institutes of Italy. Okay? So we have plenty of data concerning the cities in Italy. But I'm coming to your point that indeed there are about 8,000 cities, 8,902 cities in Italy when I started to look at the data, and 36,000 also in France. And this is indicating, in fact, in my opinion, the psychology of psychology and politics of the people in those two different countries. And just, it's not a joke, but there are cities in France among those 30,000, not many, but there are cities with no inhabitant in France. You okay?
That is very funny.
And there is a city hall in that city. In that province, very small. There are small places in rural area, of course. But there is no mayor. But there is a city hall. But there is no inhabitant.
Yes.
Okay. But the point is that indeed, the French politicians know that there are many cities in France. The point is also the geography is a little bit different. In Italy, the peninsula, you have the mountains in the middle. There are not so many cities over there, and they are grouped. The people are grouped. The settlements are grouped in a different way. I don't have the plot with me to show you, but the area size, the distribution is very different also. But it's true that 36,000 is a lot. But from the herding point of view, allow me to say that as many mayors as you have, as many functionaries you have, and as many people you get money from the government working for the city. Okay. I didn't say that, okay? I'm recorded as far as I was told that I would be recorded, but okay, this is a joke, of course. This is a joke. But indeed, there are many cities, and they know that. And they have been trying to regroup cities and politically, administratively, economically speaking, it's better to have critical entities, not to have too many places. And the rest, the contrary, is that the splitting is also stupid sometimes. Yes, this is politics. In France, recently, they have 96, if we take Corsica, metropolitan departments, but they have decided also now to make different regions. And I have, just to make statistical physics, a study on the distribution of regions in France. They went from 26 to 13, and I looked at the entropy for distribution and to find out whether or not that was intelligent to reduce the number of regions in France. And unfortunately, I found out that it was better not to diminish the number of regions. But that's physics, not politics.